Hello, here's another way that I can tell you instead of sending you emails, explain to you the how to get the total marginal abatement cost curve that we did in class the other day. So, Peter, like can. I just have my Logitech webcam camera up here loaded up, and it faces basically the sheet of paper, and I'll use this sheet of paper to explain how to derive the total marginal abatement cost curve. So the example we use in the class is the same one I'm going to use here. We have two firms. Firm A, basically, that is a emitting pollution. It's producing some good, and it's also creating some pollution with its production method. So those are the emissions. There are tons of sulfur dioxide on this axis. There's the 0 point, and here is basically the price per unit, or cost per unit of emissions. Okay, this firm A, let's call it firm A, it has a particular cost structure in when it reduces emissions. It does the following. If it's not regulated at all, it will emit 40 tons per month. And if it's asked to reduce emissions, well, that's going to cost the firm money. It's going to cost firm money because it might have to reduce production from its optimal level, and therefore it will lose profits, or it might have to install new technology. So it's going to cost society some money. So there we go. It's for the first 20 units, it is $100. And any further reductions, let's say they want to reduce from 20 to 19 tons, the costs are gonna increase. It becomes harder. The more you reduce, the harder it becomes, basically, and your costs tend to rise. So that's the idea behind this cost curve, or marginal abatement cost curve. So this is the marginal abatement cost curve of firm A. Marginal abatement cost curve. Okay, that way we did it in class. And there's another firm, call it firm B, and let's graph it here. Firm B here would emit also, so we have emissions here. Firm B, emissions. Unregulated, it would also emit 40 units. Can you see that? Oh, there, I should bring it closer. And reducing it, just, let me put the price here per unit. And reducing it by 1 unit, this firm has a higher cost, so it's not as efficient as the first firm to reducing emissions. First firm uses a better technology, or is a lot more efficient at reducing emissions, and up to the first 20 units, it's costing this firm $200 per unit for the first 20 units, and then for the next 20 units, it costs them $400 per unit. Okay. Now, how do we get this total marginal abatement cost curve? So here's total emissions. They're measured in tons per month, or per day, or per hour, whatever the units measurements are. And here's the price again, or cost per unit. Okay. So if these firms were left completely unregulated, we said that this firm will be emitting 40 tons, and this firm will be emitting 40 tons, and it's costing them nothing to emit. So we have here, let's say 20, 40, 20, 40, 60, 80. Okay, so 41, 40 the other one. This is the unregulated level of emissions. One way to think about how you would go about deriving the total marginal abatement cost curve, think of it the following way. Suppose the government was giving money to this firm A and firm B to reduce emissions. Yeah, giving money. The government says, well, you know what? There are benefits to society of reducing emissions. Let's give them some money. Don't worry about where the money's coming from for now. So I will pay you, let's say, $50 to reduce emissions by 1 unit. So let's say at $50, this firm says, okay, well, oh, the government's giving us some money. So at $50, if I reduce 1 unit, it's going to cost me $100, right? And the government's going to give me $50. No, I won't do it. Well, if this firm won't do it, of course, this firm will not do it either, right? So basically, at $50, none of the two will reduce. So I should put it actually where right about here, right? $50. So none of the firms will reduce at $50. Okay, that's not enough of an incentive for them to reduce. If the government starts raising the price, let's say, and says, okay, I'll give you $100 to reduce emissions. Well, this firm will say, well, the government is giving me $100 to reduce emissions. Well, if I reduce emissions by I can reduce emissions by 20, and the government will pay for everything. So why don't I go about doing that? And they will do it, right? Well, these guys will say, no, it's costing, if I reduce it by 1 unit, it's going to cost me $200. The government is giving me $100. No, no thanks, no thanks. So at $100, only this firm will say that I'm going to bring down emissions by 20, so I will go 60. So up to 100, nobody's reducing. But exactly at 100, firm A will reduce it by 20. And firm B will not reduce it at all, right? Okay. If we go to 150, just for examples here, different examples at 150, this firm will, let's see, at 150, this firm is going to say, oh, gee, I make even money by reducing emissions. Not only it's covering my cost, but I'm going to make additional money. So if I reduce it by 1 unit, the government's going to give me $150 and it's costing me 50, so I make net $50. Ooh, that's a good deal for me. But this company still will say, nah, 150 is not enough for me. The first unit really cost me $200, so I will not do anything. Yeah, got it? Yeah. So effectively at 150, we're still at 20 units reduction, right? And it will be true until we hit 200. When you hit 200, but don't forget that what did I want to say here? Oh, yeah. Don't forget that this at $100 exactly, this firm will reduce. And in fact, might even say, "Hey, look, I am, a socially responsible firm. I am looking at the environment. Well, of course, got paid by the government to do that thing, right? And they will do it, right, for having a good face to society. That is doing the right thing. But this firm is very costly for them to do it. I mean, and they're not in the business of losing money. They're in the business of making money. So they will not do anything. So at $200, however, this firm will say, well, I'm going to make money from my first 20 units. And what the heck, the government is funding me for the other ones. So I might as well reduce it completely by 40. So this firm will come down by 40 units. Don't forget, it already has done 20. So it's going to do another 20, right? And this firm is going to say, oh, well, now the government is covering my first 20, so I will reduce it by 20 units. So this firm will come down by 20. So we have this firm will come down in total by 40 tons, and this firm will come down by 20 tons. So in total, 60. So from 80 at 200, we'll go down by 60, so we'll end up at 20, right? So you will have basically these 20 that come from firm A, and this 20 coming from firm B. So let's say this is from firm A, and this is from firm B. And we know that this first one was from firm A. Yeah. Wow. Pretty good. I didn't even look at the page. And then the government says, "Oh, look, this is looking good. Let me give you $300 per unit." So now we're going up to $300 per unit. $300 would be 100, 200, $300. 1, 2, 3 here, somewhere here, right? This firm will say, woohoo, I'm making even money from everything. So I'm going to bring it down to zero, and I'll make money for this much money from the first 20 units and this much money from the second units here, right? This firm will say, well, I'm making money more from my first 20, but at 300, I will not bring it down completely to zero because for the 19th unit, it's costing me $400 and I'm getting only $300, so I won't go there. So at $300, I'll stay where I am. And I'll stay where I am until it hits 400. When it hits 400, this firm will be reducing it by 40, and this firm will reduce it by 40, so we're down to zero. Both firms are super clean. But the price that the government is paying is $400. Okay, and that's how we get this marginal abatement cost curve, which shows you actually quite interesting that the first 40 units will be done all by firm A, which is the firm that does the job much lower cost than the firm B, which is a lot more it's a lot more costly for them to reduce emissions. Yeah, and that's how you get this marginal abatement cost curve. That is of this particular shape. So you can see that this is brought down by these emissions here are brought down by firm B. Yeah, and that's it. Just to finalize here, we were paying the firm to reduce, so we're creating an incentive to reduce by paying them. But you could have easily imposed a tax, and if you say impose a tax, let's say at $50, then the firm will be this firm will be paying the government $2,000. They won't be happy about it, but that's too bad. And this firm will be paying $2,000, but they won't be happy. But too bad, the money can be used for public goods, so they can go back to firm A and firm B. The government can build nice roads for the firms to transport their goods, etc. So they get some of the money back. So this is a kind of a transfer, so we really don't count it. But what the firm will say is the following. It'll say basically, well, if I reduce emissions by 1 unit, it's going to cost me 100. My tax savings per unit is $50. So really, I won't do anything. Same thing with this firm, of course, and therefore there'll be no reduction. But if the tax rate is, let's say, $150, then the firm will initially be paying a lot more. But if they can reduce their tax bill, and it's beneficial for them to reduce their tax bill, because if they reduce emissions by reducing emissions, if they reduce emissions by 1 unit, they save $150 and it's costing them only $100, right? So the benefits here come from increased tax savings, right, as opposed to getting money from the government. And they'll have an incentive to reduce. Okay? Wow. Well, took me a little bit longer than I expected. I wanted to make it a 10-minute video. It's a 13-minute video. I hope you enjoy it. Bye now.